Good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to this session. I'm supposed to be talking to you about the African technology ecosystem, uh, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. I don't have very much to say, but I hope that the little I have to say will kind of be educative and would inspire more questions. I think we really get to conversations when we start to have one questions. I'm actually reaching out to you live from Abuja, which is the capital of Nigeria, for those of you who may not be familiar. I'm here on business, and I'm excited to join all of you from all over the world. Mm. With respect to the African technology ecosystem, I think it bears repeating perhaps my own background and why, Remy and the folks behind the conference decided to have me speak. And I've spent the last 7 years of my life in the African technology ecosystem, and the last 10 years working in technology space between California, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and Boston, New York. But I've spent most of my time building businesses from Lagos that have expanded into multiple other African countries, primarily in sub-Saharan Africa. And a number of experiences have kind of shaped my thoughts about the African tech ecosystem. When I first started in Nigeria in 2013, the ecosystem looked radically different. At the time, I would say you had Cape Town sitting pretty at the top of the ecosystem tables, and then Nairobi, and Nigeria was maybe a far-flung fifth when it came to the rankings of ecosystem cities. Now you almost have a bit of a juxtaposition where Nigeria, even with less infrastructure, is actually now sitting pretty at the top of those tables, and it kind of points to the future of the ecosystem and what drives it. Which brings me to my first point. The African technology ecosystem is very different from the ecosystems that you might see in Silicon Valley or London or elsewhere, because it's primarily driven by a need to solve very practical problems. Our continent is bedeviled with problems, right? I'm not here to sell you an Africa Rising story. I just got to say it as it is. The truth of the matter is, our continent is full of challenges. We have less than 4% of the world's electricity usage. We have 300 million kids that we have to provide jobs to, and 236 million of them are out of school. We have incredible poverty, where Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. And a lot of people rightfully look at these challenges and wonder, why would you choose this place of all the places in the world to go start a technology ecosystem? It doesn't appear that technology should be their problem or is their problem. But what they don't realize is that, when, like me, you're a student of history, particularly American history, what you realize is that what you see today as the American, global superpower that it was, or Chinese superpower that it was predicated by an acceleration in technology advancement, starting with basic infrastructure and solving basic problems like how do we educate our children so they're productive? How do we feed our people so they're productive? How do we provide healthcare so people don't fall sick and die needlessly? How do we secure our borders, and how do we ensure that people are able to create value so they can get paid and people can make things and move things and make money? It wasn't until these countries had solved these problems that they had thriving democracies or economies or governments that are reckoned with around the world. And so at the end of the day, as I keep saying, economic freedom precedes political freedom. That's the big lesson. And I think that's the foundation of the African technology ecosystem, is that, starting with the mobile phone in the 2000s, we were handed a gift. And the gift was the ability to leapfrog into this new age, where it is possible with this tiny device that holds the same computing power that moved men to the moon, to actually transform our societies and build on the back of completely new infrastructure, a new way to coordinate solutions to our problems, to effect them, to distribute solutions. And that's what we've seen really with the African technology ecosystem. We are the biggest beneficiaries of this leapfrog into the mobile age. And that's what's at the core of the technology ecosystem. It exists to solve problems. It exists primarily to solve these problems, which are wicked problems, so very quickly evolving problems, are very different from the solutions that could be copied from the US or elsewhere by leveraging the power of technology and innovation, and ultimately with a view to turning these huge challenges into global business opportunities. That's why the technology ecosystem exists. However, I think it's important to kind of preface, that, high rising, and hair raising speech with some preconditions for growing the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is an interesting juncture. And I say that because, this would not be the first rise of the African technology ecosystem. Many people don't realize, but, Africa has actually historically been at the forefront of technological progress around the world. I know people who, I was talking to a friend, an older friend, and he was telling me that, personal computer was invented perhaps 4 years, 4 years before he got a copy in University of Port Harcourt. Many people don't know this, but in Nigeria, a business known as Tara Systems was the first business to create, make it possible for people to store images and other rich text formats, numeric alpha characters, and to some extent text in MySQL database, images and other forms which were critical to the development of things like the banking industry around the world. Those were invented in Africa. And we can keep going in terms of what has come out of Africa. But Africa, unfortunately, because of who's telling the story, as they say, doesn't often get featured in the development story of these technologies. So I say that to say this is not the first time Africa's tech scene is rising. And I don't think it will be the last time. But I think what makes this time possibly different is that we have an opportunity to really build it right this time. So not on the basis of a few people's intelligence or on the basis of exceptional talent, but on the basis of really developing an ecosystem where anyone, and by anyone I mean anyone, right, has the ability to leverage technology to not only improve themselves, but improve their communities and solve their own problems. And how will we get there? I like to think about the way we get there as thinking about it from the point of view of building a home. When you're building a home, you start with the foundation, then you floor the first floor, then you do the decking, you build the second floor. You don't build the roof and mistake that for the first floor. You got to think strategically about how you build from the ground up. And if you think about that in the context of a digital ecosystem or technology ecosystem, the ground floor at the end of the day will still remain infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and digital platforms. Digital infrastructure, landing sea cable was a predicator to Nigeria's rise as a tech center. Whether people like to hear that story or not, right? Without Madam Funke Okweke dropping cable, we wouldn't have the tech industry we have today. So we need more of that. We need more cables, we need more power, we need more data centers. Those things typically are the responsibility of the government. But in the absence of a government with the funding or the expertise to do that, it must engage the private sector and provide stable policies that guarantee a long-term return on this type of long-term investments. Second of all, alongside digital infrastructure, we need to be thinking about digital platforms. At the end of the day, open data is extremely necessary. We need to be thinking about identity in a completely different way, right? Rather than spending a lot of money on German biometric technologies, we can leverage the opportunity to build computer vision for Africa that allows us to recognize Black faces and enable facial recognition as a form of validation of identity. There are multiple other things that come under the platform umbrella, and I know my time is short, so I'm just going to rush through other stuff, and hopefully in the questions we can clarify. Now, on the back of digital infrastructure and digital platforms, then you can have a conversation about digital financial services, which obviously are critical, right? If people are leveraging digital infrastructure and digital platforms to create value, there has to be a way to pass along some of that value to the digital infrastructure and digital platforms. And more importantly, as I would explain later, to pass up some of those returns to the digital people with digital skills and digital entrepreneurship that are creating the value. So extremely important that we build a more solid digital financial services base, but it's impossible to do that if we don't have reliable infrastructure and if we don't have identity platforms, amongst other kinds of platforms. And then on top of that, you then have digital skills, which are extremely important. Young people need to be able to access whatever skills they need to be able to manage the digital transformation and evolution. And also digital entrepreneurship. People have to be able to make things and get paid for making things on the internet. It has to be easier and cheaper to make things on the internet. This is the framework that makes Africa's technology ecosystem evolve in the correct direction and become something that actually, in truth, extends prosperity and purpose to everyone. So without further ado, I'll hand it back to Remy, as that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, E. If you have any questions for E, please don't be shy. You can either let us know, we can unmute you so you can ask your question, or pop them in the chat and we can let E know what the questions are. So yeah, don't be shy. But just a quick one from me, E. With the pandemic, has there been any sort of impact on the ecosystem in Nigeria in any shape or form? Has that enhanced it in any way, or has it impacted it in a negative way?
I think the impact, there is impact. We would be foolish to not admit that there is impact. There is impact. But impact has largely depended on the ability of people to lead, not necessarily on any kind of preconceived notion about who should be impacted or not. So I've seen great companies evolve out of this, much stronger companies with newer business models that are recession and COVID-19 proof. And I've seen companies flail even when they have a clear opportunity because they don't have the right leadership that can help them adapt through times like this. So it's very much been dependent on the leadership.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. We've got a question for Raj, from Raj. So great to see you here, he says. What's the 3 pieces of advice you will give to the angel investors looking to invest in Africa?
That's a great question. So I lead a group of, my day job is I lead a group of 125 angel investors who invest in African companies. Last quarter, we invested in 9 African companies, over $1 million. And it's all technology organized and automated. And the 3 pieces of advice I'll give is, first of all, find like-minded people to invest with. Angel investment is a team sport. It's not your full-time job. So you can't think about it the way institutions think about it, which is that, they can take the whole round. You got to share with others. You got to think about it as a team sport. So have your band of brothers, if you can call it, or sisters, with whom you would invest. The second thing is, get quality advice, invest in quality advice. I find a lot of people rushing to angel investments because they like the founder, and founders are very charismatic. I can come and sell you horse shit, to be quite frank, it's my training. But quality advice will give you a sense of not just the founder's passion for the business, but more importantly, what the macro environment for that investment looks like. And whether it's a sector where you actually have value to bring or not. And so that's very important. I always advise, try and invest in quality advice. At the Fund for Africa's Future, we offer investor memos, 20 investor memos a year, very deeply researched. You get the quality advice that you need to angel invest from people who've been doing it for 5 years and returned capital doing it. So invest in quality advice. Don't just go with your hunch, except you want to lose your money, and that's all good. And then finally, find a way to help. Most people's idea of angel investing is you just drop money and walk away. And that's just not how it works in the real world. If you can't add value to a company, it's unlikely to return capital. That's just the fact. It is because of the value you can add beyond your capital as an angel investor that you're going to be able to return the capital. So very important for you to look for companies that allow you or that give you an opportunity to return, to help so you can return the capital.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. We've got 1 minute, but we've got a final question. It's quite long, but I'll try and read it quickly. So thank you very much for your speech. Very informative. I come from Tunisia, and I don't seem to see any particular cooperation between North Africa and West Africa. Collabs between Tunisia and Nigeria, for example. Both seem to focus on bonds linking the US and Europe, which is very unfortunate. What do you think is the reason, and what can we do as students in the STEM field? You've got literally 30 seconds to answer that. I know you can do it. Thank you.
I will be honest and tell you I do not know. I think, unfortunately, the Southern West Africa and North Africa are very different places, but there is opportunities for collaboration perhaps between Northern West Africa, Mali, Chad, Northern Nigeria, and North Africa because of similar language and cultural similarities. And I would explore those if I were you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for answering that quite promptly. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you, E, so much. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all our participants. Thank you.